Welcome back to the final quarter hour of the Daily Westchester Live. I'm Peter Moses with John Charan, David Singer, and David.
We have as our special guest for the hour is Jenifer Ross, who heads up Water Cooler Hub, a co-working facility in Tarrytown that caters to the freelance professional community in Westchester. And as we've been discussing, we think this is a trend that's going to continue and grow tremendously. One of the things that we had touched on briefly, but I just want to get into a little bit, is that there are a number of places in Westchester and in Fairfield County, Connecticut, that are temporary or office suites where solo practitioners, lawyers, accountants, whatever, can rent out space and rent it out on a somewhat of a short-term basis, I guess. But it's not the model for that is very different than what Jenifer has set up and what the sort of a whole concept of co-working does, because it doesn't necessarily create what I would call create community. Mm-hmm. Is that sort of the right sort of differentiation between you and the Regis's or Stark office systems or Carr offices?
Yeah. I mean, each one has its place and use in the community, and the office suites tend to be a little bit more commercial. They tend to attract 80% of larger businesses looking for satellite spaces for their executives to be at any given time. They have much more secretarial support, whereas Water Cooler wouldn't have a secretary to take calls for you. Some spaces do. For the most part, we're on the opposite scale. We're attracting 80% of small business owners and entrepreneurs and solopreneurs who really do want to have that interaction. A lot of these office suites, it's about privacy, whereas at a co-working space, it's really more about community. The office suites also have contracts, whereas co-working spaces tend not to have contracts. It's on a floating a la carte monthly, you can pull out at any time kind of basis, where it's membership driven. And a co-working space really wants you to take ownership. They want you to feel as though it's your space, your business. They want you to do the dishes. They want you to wipe down the desk. They want you to bring in toilet paper if it's needed.
So when you first came up with the concept and you were developing this for, did you develop the concept and then find the space, or did you find the space and then back into the concept? How did that work for you?
Before I opened, I'd never even heard of co-working. I was sitting in a cafe with a friend doing our work and realized that you couldn't be there for 3 hours. You couldn't print. You couldn't have a meeting, and just thought there had to be something more akin to what we needed. And she said, there's a place in the city that focuses just for writers, and you can go and be a member. And so I started looking online and found the term co-working and started researching it more. I'd actually only visited one co-working space before I opened my own.
Oh, is that right?
And it was from 1 year from the day I decided to do it to the day I opened.
Which one did you look at?
I went down to Green Spaces, New York. And
is that one of these sort of startup incubator type places?
It's a little bit larger than mine, probably about 3,000 square feet, owned by a gal. I can't remember her name, but yes, I mean their model's a little bit more towards they try to focus on environmentally friendly businesses to fill their space. Right.
Interesting. It was about a month ago, we had Aaron Harris on from Tutor Spree as a guest, and his business is housed in Dog Patch Labs, which is one of these sort of startup incubator spots in Union Square.
Right.
So that was actually my first experience looking at that, and that's when I thought this is just a tremendous concept. And I always in the back of my mind, I said this is something that would really work well up in an area like this. I mean, I think the prime markets, aside from where you are, could be the Sound Shore of Westchester, but also I think Fairfield County. Now I know that there's something called Soundview, I think, in Stamford.
There are a few in Connecticut. If you go to coworking.com or also to any of these...
But these strike me as more of the real sort of office suite kind of concepts and less about community.
There are a few co-working spaces in Connecticut. And anybody who's looking for co-working spaces within the U.S. or globally can go to a number of different websites, including Liquid Space and Loose Cubes and Open Desks. They're all businesses that have cropped up that help people locate co-working spaces and other types of conference rooms or event locations throughout the United States and abroad.
Before we get I want you to ask some more questions if you have them, but one of the things I think we should get into, if people are listening and want to pull out their pens and pads right now or go online, tell us contact information for you.
Well, you can always access our website at watercoolerhub.com. Our phone number is 914-332-1400. Anyone can send me an email at Jenifer with one N at watercoolerhub.com. And we're located at 21 North Broadway in Terrytown.
How many inquiries?
And you're on Facebook.
And I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. LinkedIn is Jenifer Ross, but Facebook and Twitter is as Watercooler Hub.
And for those of you who didn't hear it the first time, Jennifer's with one N, not two N's. Your parents ran out of letters when they named you, or how did that happen?
No, I think it was a movie star that had a one N Jennifer a long time ago.
You know, it's sort of doing this a little backwards, but tell us a little about yourself. I mean, professionally, what were you doing prior to ramping up Watercooler Hub?
I was doing a number of things. I have a master's degree in architectural preservation, so one of my freelance jobs at the time was working on the downtown revitalization of Sleepy Hollow, doing a facade matching grant program, also working for a gal who has a marketing company. And before that, I was director of development at Warner Library. For a short stint, I was assistant village administrator at Village Hall. I had a gallery downtown for a number of years. Basically, I have an arts background, have always liked to have my own business, and just decided it was time to find one place to hang all my hats.
It seems like a sort of this is sort of, it's not just you're not just a real estate broker, you're really sort of I don't want to say community organizer, because that's really not the right connotation, but it's sort of a community facilitator, a connector.
Yeah, I really do enjoy.
Town crier.
Well, I grew up in Manhattan, and it's kind of hard to make a difference in a big town like that. But in Terrytown, I always refer to it as summer camp for adults. And you can make a difference so easily. And if you have an idea, the town gets behind you. They truly support you in a lot of different ways, emotionally. And it's a place where you can have a business that serves the community, and you can see the difference every day.
Jennifer, surprises. You've been in the business now 7 months. Surprises, good surprises, and surprises that were not so good surprises.
Good surprises. The good surprises is that, again, the community supports me. That's been a huge... just wake up. I love the fact that people know I'm there. They're promoting me themselves. They're behind me. On the negative side, you live it, you breathe it. It's every minute of your day, which I don't mind. Truly, I love to make things happen. I love to make something from nothing. That's the artist in me. But it does take over. It is a huge part of your life. And thankfully, because I am downtown, my 10-year-old who's a little bit missing me can walk there every day after school and take over my computer and set herself up in the conference room.
One of the things I noticed when I went to visit you, you actually had an intern coming in from Sleepy Hollow High School.
Yes.
To do some work on behalf of some of the other co-working tenants.
Yeah, that's one. We have 3 programs in addition to the Water Cooler Advantage program. We also work with EF International School and Sleepy Hollow High School to have interns for our members at any given time. They get class credit, and they also get the exposure of working for a lot of different kinds of people, different industries. And then one of the things that isn't mentioned, it's on my website, but we have something called the Coworking Visa. It's sort of an understood collective co-working benefit that anyone who has a co-working space allows other members of those co-working spaces to utilize your space 3 times a year gratis. So if you're in New York City and you're a water cooler member and you've got to spend the day somewhere and you have to have a meeting, you can call up or email any of the co-working spaces in New York and have a free day, and vice versa. I haven't had anybody utilize it yet for me, but one of my members did go down to Indy Hall and spend 2 days down there.
I would suggest, since you're in Tarrytown, and you might want to expand out, I would suggest you get in touch with some politicians who would. Paul Feiner would love to. Has he called you? Has anyone from
not
have
yet.
any elected officials called you about going into their constituencies?
No, not yet.
That's sadly surprising. Because I know
you've worked with the village administration in Tarrytown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were an employee of Sleepy Hollow, so I'm sure they'd be open to your doing things there. But that's the same local environment, so that's not a problem. But I would imagine that you look at New Rochelle. New Rochelle has a lot of storefronts that are empty. White Plains has the same thing, and Office Towers, same problem. And this sounds like something that could really grow throughout Westchester, and again, then throughout the country, because this is an industry where kids getting out of college could actually get together and try to run a business from your environment. Yeah. They have to rent more than one desk, but
it seems that you're one of a group of customer for you are really people who are operating on their own in home-based businesses who may not know about you, but or would desperately love to sort of get out of the house for a half a day, 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Have you looked into the sort of the demographic or the length and breadth of home-based businesses in Westchester area? Is there any sort of tracking of that?
I haven't actually done that. Not that though I would like to mention that anybody who does want to try the space is not quite sure about co-working, if it's right for them, we always offer the first day free.
What's the address, by the way?
It's 21 North Broadway.
So it's in the downtown part of Tarrytown. It would just be north of Main Street. So as anyone who knows that area at all knows that there's an abundance of restaurants there. There's other kinds of shopping there. The music hall is there. They have some really good pizza there. No longer my brother's pizzeria, but they have really good pizza, which his pizza was just okay.
And I love Sweetgrass Grill. Great restaurant in town.
Yeah, we've got lots of wonderful restaurants. Yeah, and a very active chamber. If anybody would like to know what's going on in Tarrytown, the Sleepy Hollow Tarrytown Chamber has got a terrific website, and you can search lots
It's
of
very
ways.
interesting. The dynamic of some of the Hudson River towns, particularly Tarrytown, and even a little bit to lesser extent some of the smaller ones like Irvington, have a much more vibrant dynamic than a lot of the Sound Shore main streets.
You know why that is? They've always been centered around the water. I mean, 'cause they all have one main drag that goes right down to the water.
Right.
So that level of organization had to be there. Whereas in Rye, there's no businesses along the water in Rye.
Mm-hmm. Right.
There's a few restaurants in New Rochelle along Shore Road, but for the most part, there's no businesses really along the water. There are in the northern part of New Rochelle, where those docks are in that one public
but I
park.
mean they're all boat related too.
Yeah, they're all boat related. But the Hudson communities were built around being in the downtown,
Right.
And the housing there is smaller and older and more quaint. They're just more quaint communities. Irvington is a hell of a lot more quaint than Rye,
Right.
you know, and Tarrytown's a lot more quaint than Portchester or New Rochelle, or even and Pelham doesn't have anything along the water for the most part except a couple of clubs.
True.
It's not a place that's a very good observation, David, and one that New York City for years never took advantage of its waterfront. Look at a
Right.
place like Seattle, which 30, 40 years ago said, you know what, we have to work to revitalize our waterfront.
Let's plug Water Cooler Hub one more time before
Yes,
we go.
the address, because we're going to be off in a few seconds.
21 North Broadway.
No, the email.
Of email at watercoolerhub.com.
Okay, Jennifer, I would like to thank you very much. We'll be back
you.
next week with some more interesting information on Daily Westchester Live on WVOX and WVOX.com. Bye-bye now.